Glitters is banned. The showcase is here. Let's see what came on top, but I'm pretty sure it's going to look familiar. Good morning to you guys. Welcome back to Casting Commons, the show where we talk and discuss all things Pauper. I'm your host, Teasdale, and this is my co-host, the Kenku Artificer himself.
Hello. That was an interesting start of an episode.
Why, hello there, sir. How do you do? Before we start, guys, please do not forget to hit that like and subscribe button and the follow button so you never miss an upload. It is a great way to support us, help the algorithm, and get us amazing exposure. And it's also absolutely free, so I do highly recommend trying it out. Just press it. Just boop. There you go. Done it for you. So, pal, what have you been up to this week?
I actually managed to play some Pauper this week. Not as much as I would have liked to have played. But I ran through a league with Kuldotha. And I don't know if it was just the time of day that I played or something, but the league was just like, I basically played 5 grinders in a row, one after the other. It was a very intense league. But yeah, I managed to go 3-2 with that. It was a bit of a weird Kuldotha list. It played like Pesig Flamebreakers and Impulses again.
Oh, yeah.
Just as I tried not to die to one breath weapon, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it performed all right. I lost to Apaz on walls. There was a few draws that I needed to like hit a land to kill his battlement before he went off, and I just missed it. So I wasn't the furthest away from being able to stabilize, but yeah, as soon as you don't kill the mana guy, you just get absolutely run over by especially the Cascade version.
Yeah. Seems fair. Seems totally reasonable to be fair, because it does just obviously become too much after the first one that sticks.
Yeah, essentially. As soon as they chain it into... so as soon as you can't kill an overgrown battlement, they essentially just spiral out of control. And with the new version of Kuldotha, where it's a lot more like you'd want to get in, if they have like 6 blockers that none of them die to you guys, it's pretty tough. Yeah. And then my other loss, weirdly, was to Mono Blue Fae. I basically kept a 1-lander, and then by turn 9, I still hadn't drawn another land. I think any of the previous 8 turns, if I drew a land, I was probably fine, and I'd probably just win the game. But yeah, it was a sad one. But yeah, League was very strong and very intense. Just playing into grinder after grinder. Not something I've experienced before in a league. It's usually a challenge that happens.
Well, at least you earned it. At least you earned your 3-2.
Yeah. It was a hard fought 3-2.
You best keep that treasure and like frame it. That chest, sorry. Just like frame like this chest was really hard done by. Like I did 5 grinders for this.
Just screenshotted and printed out.
Yeah.
And then we had a Pauper event on Saturday as well, just like a small local one that I was supposed to go to, but on the way there my car basically decided it was gonna implode and dropped a valve. So the rest of the bank holiday weekend I've been pulling an engine out of my car instead of Flame Pauper, unfortunately.
Sounds much more exciting, clearly.
It's a lot harder work. What about yourself?
I haven't really done anything too exciting. I think I recorded a bit of Affinity. With obviously the conversations that we thought Grixis was going to get big. I thought I'd take a run out. Just picked one of the 5-0 lists. I think one thing I changed was they were running 10 draw spells, 4 Deadly Sweep, 4 Bargain, 2 Thoughtcast. I thought it was a bit weird, so I basically swapped a Bargain for a Thoughtcast, so I went 4-3-3. And it felt really good. It was an interesting list, to be fair. Not like the ones that we'll definitely be covering. Like triple Crackland Shaman.
All right. Okay.
And it was really good at dealing with, which is also, it was quite lucky to be fair, because I versed 2 elves in the league. So I was like, this is totally fine. One of the games, actually, I think I almost lost, or I did lose. I got to 19 cards left in my deck and hadn't found one of my 3 Crackland Shamans. It's like, I found all my draw as well. I was like, I'm drawing. But yeah, I think I managed to still win that game, I think. The video is up, but I can't really remember what happened. But I think I ended up gal blasting like Timberwatch elves to save me, but one of the games, the guy was like, I'm going to keep my Timberwatch elf. My Timberwatch elf can just die. I'm going to focus on keeping my Well-Wisher alive for some reason. Like, and then just was on like 73. And then I eventually found a Krakon Shaman and wiped the board, and I had nothing to do, and I was just like, 4.
Yeah.
4. It was like, this is just longer than it needed to be, but like, it was a Vines of Aswodless as well, and had double Vines. So like,
they're like if it just Vines this Timberwatch,
yeah, exactly.
Killed you.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think the next turn or the turn after that, they played double Quirion Ranger and just went tap, untap, tap, untap. I was like, oh yeah, gain 15. So odd. But it was a really interesting game because of that, in a way, because they also had either 1 or 2 copies of Avenging Hunter in the main. And then we ended up having this sub-fight for the initiative. But it came out quite good in the sense because I had the Gear Seeker, which actually came in real clutch because it was just like unblockable, swing, hit you for 5. But then I had just enough guys to keep his stuff at bay. Or if he did attack, he had to attack all out and lose all his good elves. So it was quite interesting that way, but it just didn't need to be. I probably would have lost that game if he just kept the Timberwatch around, or if they kept the Timberwatch around, but hey ho. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. I think, I recorded with Blue-Red Solfatara as well. It didn't go as planned. Actually, it did go as planned. It went exactly as I expected it to go. But yeah, I'm still gonna post it anyways, even though it did terribly. It's funny. I think I hadn't versed Cold Author in a league in probably, I don't even know how many weeks. Like, it must have been like 3 weeks worth of playing leagues. I hadn't versed Cold Author for ages, and then that league, when it has a dodgy Cold Author matchup, I versed it I think twice or 3 times. I was like, alright, okay. But it also went. Also, the other matchups where I thought, this will be okay, it still did abysmally bad. I was like, this deck's just not good, but it's so funny to play.
Yeah, you sort of just want to be running into really slow, clunky control decks, don't you? But
you say that, I versed Corgate and I still lost. I ain't mad.
User error, clearly.
Yeah, it must be. All at the fault of the deck. All the fault of the pilot, sorry. The deck is perfect in every single way. It's like Reddit's opinion on Mono Black.
But yeah, it definitely seems a good time to be recording with Grixis Affinity.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And as you say, there's so many lists, as we'll see in these events, like basically no list is the same. Although, yeah, I think for me, I'd definitely be on 4 Thoughtcast, 4 Deadly Dispute, and then work out the rest of the numbers from there. I think they're the 2, by far the best 2. I think Thoughtcast's just so broken.
The only thing I can think of is because it was a league deck I grabbed, I wouldn't be surprised if they expected to have like main deck sort of game against Cold Author. Having that ability to gain the life. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, but then you just play 4 bargains as well.
Yeah.
Just play the 12.
Yeah, you could definitely do that, for sure. For sure. But yeah, it's definitely a fun deck, and I really enjoyed playing it. And definitely, probably, I wouldn't even say I played the greatest, but the deck's still that strong. I just carries half the time. Yeah, but it's alright. It was good fun. Definitely. And it's definitely going to get a lot better.
Sweet.
So, move on to some news?
Yeah, go for it.
So, guys, it's nearly here. I just realised. I don't know why all dawned on me. So, you've all got to be excited about this as we are. Next week, Saturday the 1st of June, is the Casting Commons Battle of the Bolt. It is going to be in our area. It's going to be for our local game store. Well, not our local game store, our local gaming area, I guess, if you want to call it. With £15 entry, cut to top 8, Secret Lair, Mountain Go, which is the 5 bolts, I think it is.
Yeah, play a set of bolts.
And a pack per win for everyone. So every time you win a pack, every time you get a win, you get a pack. So pretty decent prize spot for the whole group, which everyone who's attending, which will be great to see. There's also other top 8 prizes, like Magic Fest bolts as well. So if you are interested, please check out the link in the description for the ticket tailor and get your ticket, because it's going to be a good weekend event. Yeah. See you guys there. Also, there is other events being dotting around. Check out Pauper Dan, obviously, on Twitter, because he retweets them like he's gone out of fashion. I feel like...
Yeah, there is quite a lot as well coming up towards like the end of this month, the start of next month. Pauper is definitely picking up more and more.
Yeah, in the middle of that, you've also got, I think, is it June or July's Pauper again? It's July, right? I think, it
it's
is.
After MH.
Yeah, it's literally the week after, I think. I think it comes out on the Friday or something like that, and then the following Friday's Pauper again. But that's a sore topic for probably the PFP to make a hard choice of. But finally, there is also the Badger hosting LPI International League, which is a buy. You basically, I think you win like a buy or something like that to the Paupergeddon. It doesn't even have to be the next Paupergeddon as well. It's if you are planning on going to a Paupergeddon, you can defer it to the next one or whatever. So you just have to contact the LPI. So, but it is also the only LGS in the UK to be doing this. So if you are interested in that event, check that out on the 20th of July, and it'll be in the Facebook Pauper groups and all that sort of stuff. You will have definitely seen it, and Dan will definitely have retweeted it for sure.
Yeah, I think I seen that the other day actually.
Finally, shout out obviously to Callie, not only for being on the podcast last week, which was obviously great to have him on, but also shout out to the Trophy Tuesdays, just because, that's where I got my affinity deck, and it clearly works for me, so it's probably going to work for you, and it'll be great. It's great to see how they interlink between the challenges, showcases, and all that sort of good stuff, and the winning deck lists. And that's it. That's all my news. I'm done.
A quiet news week.
Yeah. Nothing really interesting, apart from obviously Modern Horizons. Modern Horizons 3 has been slowly but surely spoiled and leaked at about 50,000.
I was going to say,
and leaked 55,000 times faster. Yeah. So, but obviously everything's officially spoiled. We'll most likely be shouting out our top 5. I'm already calling it now. We have vetoing the one card, the card that is under the ban discussion. We cannot put that at number 1. Because it's too free. More interesting.
That has been officially spoiled, so you can actually talk about that one.
Yes. If you have not seen that, please go check out Gavin's Twitter, because he also mentions the fact that they're talking about banning it already.
And it is the cranial plate, and just FYI, not the weird little lizard thing that people think is going to get banned. Just to clarify.
Yeah, just to clarify, it is not the devoid lizard.
Moving on to Friday challenge, I guess.
Just for everyone to know, there is a Saturday showcase challenge as well. So we have the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday challenge, as well as a showcase challenge as well. So great to dive into.
Starting us off Friday the 24th, 56 players. So we're back sort of where we should be, I think, or where we usually are for challenges. I think last week it was like 40, 44, something like that. It was pretty low. But yeah, back up this week. First place was Grixis Affinity. Second place was also Grixis Affinity. Third place was Jeskai Wildfire. Fourth was Mogwarts. Fifth was Jeskai Wildfire. Sixth was Blue Red Scred. Seventh was Pestilence, of all things.
Woo!
Eighth was Dredge. And then the near misses. Ninth was Mogwarts. And 10th was Kuldotha.
Yes.
I think the first main thing for me is obviously double Grixis Affinity at the top, but it's both Luffy and Mogged as well, who are both like Grixis Affinity masters. So that's not surprising to see. But essentially, the first week back when people are saying, "Oh, Grixis is now the best deck again," it's sort of expected that they will be back on Grixis and smashing everyone to pieces.
Yeah, it was funny because I think Luffy top 8 last week with Gardens as well. So he just took that week off. He was like, I'm just gonna make sure that nobody's packing Affinity Hate. Just make sure with the metagames, like no surprises, and then bang, here we are. I'm back. Is basically what he's done. Shady is back indeed.
And then I'm assuming you want to touch on this Pestilence list from Zamu.
Me? Pestilence? Never. So Zamu's been on Pest. I'm sure he was on like Pestilence last time, or on like some sort of weird, strange black-white blade deck or something last time. I'm pretty sure last time he was in the top 8, I should say. I really do like this list. I think it's sort of definitely getting a bit more tuned towards the meta, and it's also a good one, I would say, as well, to be able to beat Grixis Affinity. Because, first of all, it's a white deck, so you've got access to 4 Duster Dust straight off the bat. Second of all, Pestilence is actually a pretty good answer to keep things around, like keep having answers to the threats. Like the big problem with Grixis Affinity is they can outgrind the control decks because of Blood Fountain and all their threats. Where Pestilence is here's my one answer, your turn. Like this card can pretty much answer every threat they have. So it's quite a solid choice. It just obviously it's a bit slow actually closing out the game. But Campfire is the big addition that I've seen here. That is also another big way to outlast other control decks, like Gardens as well.
Yeah, sort of removes the negative of the Pestilence, doesn't it? Yeah. I think for me, the first thing I thought when I looked at this list, it looks so much more like Gardens now than it does look like a Pestilence deck.
Yeah.
Like the Pestilence decks of old were all like dead weird, clunky, black-white piles. Where this, like you say, it literally looks like Gardens, but instead of green, you've got white.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely
which is
like
a good place to be.
It reminds me of the Pestilence decks of Bonder's Ornament era, where it was like Guardian, and that's pretty much it. You kind of maybe had something early on that kind of blocked some aggro decks, but you didn't have the whole like Core Sky Fishery weird mid-rangey deck that had Pestilence in. It's like, this is a Pestilence deck, even though there's only 3 copies, it's like, I'm going to kill stuff, I'm going to land a Pestilence, I'm going to basically wipe the board minus probably 1 card, and then jam a Guardian and then kill you. And that is it.
And I think that's what we found with the other versions of the Pestilence decks. As soon as you put in Core Skyfisher, you just sort of skew further and further away from like the actual Pestilence shell until you end up basically just being like Black White Blade instead.
Yeah.
Where this is like you say, there's 3 Guardians and then 7 Inspectors to, I'm assuming, give it some decent early game against Kuldotha. But that's it for your creatures. There's no they've got 4 Tithe Blades, but there's no bounce interaction with them. And then you're just leaning on your Guardians, chipping for 2 and your 3 Pestilence.
Well, I think the Thraben's obviously just a good card to replace itself. It does block obviously for Kuldotha, as you said, but it's also, to be fair, I'd probably say the most reason it's there is because it flips your Tithe Blades. And I think most of the time, if the reason, Garden Mirrors, for example, Garden's Mirrors are basically come down to Crypt Rats and who sees more Tithe Blades. And it's very similar in that sort of, I can imagine it comes down say that mirror, or the Gardens, he's sort of mid-rangey controller. He's just, I'm going to kill, you're both going to stare at each other, kill everything, and Tithe Blade a bunch. And then whoever can get the most Tithe Blade flips kills people quicker.
I think the Inspectors in general have always just been way more impressive than they look. Even just against stuff like Core Gates, having 2 toughness, so you can just play Pestilence, wipe the 1/1s out, and then your Pestilence doesn't die because you've still got this 1/1/2 chilling. They'll do a lot of work in this deck, like you say, with the Tithe Blades as well. Giving you early game, giving you stuff so you can just wipe the board of X1s and still hang your Pestilence around. And always just drawing a card. Yeah.
Another thing that is also that sort of a bonus for the deck is now that Glitters is banned, people will be running less enchantment hit as well. So it's more likely to stick. It's pretty sad when you just play a Pestilence into a board to, let's say, keep a 1/2 around or something, and then they just untap and play Dawnbringer Cleric or blow up your Pestilence with a Destroy Evil or what have you. So I can definitely see being able to have more Pestilences around is definitely a good thing for sure.
I guess it's sort of like a secret benefit from this deck is the Core Gates decks now are sliding out all the Dawnbringers from the mains to replace them with the Outlaw Medics, which it's obviously not the end of the world if they've got main Dawnbringers, but it's a lot better for you if they don't. But then they obviously get a lot more game against the aggressive decks by playing the Dawnbringer. So it's definitely Pestilence is definitely in an interesting place, especially with the list looking like that. I can see why it's done well.
Yeah, 100%. Would you like to cover the deck below that by any chance?
Oh, the Dredge. Yeah, I seen it was quite cool, obviously, to see Dredge hitting the top 8. It's not the most interesting Dredge list.
No.
It's there's nothing really new. It is on the Rubble Belt Mavericks,
Mm.
only on 2 Circle of the Land Druids and on a full 4 of Exhume plan. Which is interesting. Obviously, we've seen them cutting out the exhumes basically to make more space. But yeah, I guess it's a bit of a halfway house. It's got 2 Gnaws in as like the hedge against the aggro, but not gone with the full 4. But yes, sitting on the 4 exhumes is pretty interesting. No Oliphants as well, 15 lands and just the 8 cyclers.
It's an interesting one, to be fair. As I say, like, going the halfway out, like, I guess Exhume just is that kind of, I guess with Maverick as well, the thing that I do like is the fact that you don't just blind mill everything. You do have some sort of agency. So I guess Exhume does get slightly better there, but yeah, it's definitely, and same, I guess same with Pylons as well. Like, you could say, oh, okay, I guess I keep this Exhume on top.
Yeah, with the Mavericks and the Pylons as well as the 8 cyclers, you do have a lot more opportunity to do the just turn 2 exhume something big, hope it carries you as well. But Dredge is definitely benefiting from the Glitters ban. It seems to be one of the decks that I would say is probably benefit the most. Just with everything slowing down and going deck control, it just has a lot more game.
Yeah.
If you want to fight an aggro deck, you know you're only fighting one aggro deck. You don't have to worry about Glitters. You can just worry about Kuldotha. And even then, obviously, Kuldotha's still highly played, but on a different level to where it was 3-4 weeks ago.
I don't know if there's too much else. I guess obviously there's double Mogwarts in the top 10 is a good thing. Bako in 4th place and then Hamuda in 9th. Obviously just losing out on Breakers. Both with, I would assume, the exact list. If not, be very, very similar. They do obviously test together.
I think the interesting thing for me from this is you were saying, obviously, before we started recording, like Mogwarts is played a lot more this week than it has been previously.
Yeah.
Did you say it was the 4th most played deck or the 5th most played deck?
It was the 4th most played deck in the challenge meta over the weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Which is pretty mad, really, because we're just used to essentially Hamuda playing it and no one else. Like we would maybe have like 3 or 4 pilots over the full weekend. So yeah, it's interesting. Again, Kuldotha has been dropping back, and he's not a great matchup for Mogwart. So maybe that's something to do with it.
Yeah, so like looking at like the big jump, to be fair, there's the clear big 3 this weekend. So the top deck over the past probably 6 weeks is been Kuldotha generally. And last week it was sort of the same with Affinity picking up a little bit. Like it was non-existent and now it was existent to an extent. Like I had 4 pilots, I think it was last week. And then this week we've had a big jump. 34 pilots over the whole entire weekend was playing Affinity.
Yeah, that's big.
26 pilots was on Kuldotha, and then 15 pilots on Corgates, and those are the big 3. So that's 20%, 15%, 16%, and then 10% roughly rounded up.
I think even that Corgates number's creeping up to what we're usually seeing about 8 to 10 people.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously Kuldotha's slightly down, Corgate's slightly up. Obviously Mogwarts is up quite a bit.
Yeah, and then so you got. After that, you've got Mogwarts at 10 pilots, and then Ponza at 8. So like, there's still a big jump like between obviously. Well, it's not big to be fair. It's still 6. It's 6 pilots between 3rd and 4th, as in 15 pilots and then 9 pilots. But still big. Like as you say, you usually see 6 pilots max, maybe 4, as in Hamuda play Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, and then you maybe have Bako as well occasionally. Like it wasn't very many pilots, but definitely a good showing. And only slight changes to the list too. Which I also find it looks like they've basically, as you said, they've just tried to accept the not gonna find mono red or hope to get lucky. They've cut down on a Pilferer, which to me shows that Pilferer is pretty good at speeding your clock up. Like it just makes you go off a turn faster. So cutting down to 1 Pilferer there is a big sign for that. But it's also interesting compared to further down. And then they've got a dedicated sideboard, definitely to prepare for Affinity, with 3 Gorilla Shamans, 3 Cast into Fires, and a
Yeah.
Mass Vandal. So it's definitely I'm gonna somewhat target Affinity for sure. Cool. See, deck's definitely versatile, and deck is got a lot of pilot reward to it for sure. Obviously, Hamuda and Baker both doing well, and both consistently doing well with the deck. To be fair, it shows that it's not. People, I always think though, my main thing is people under prepare for Mogwarts. Not like under prepare as in they don't come with like 16 cards. So I'm gonna be. It's more the sit there. They'll go. I have a relic in play. I can't lose, and that's what they'll do. And they'll definitely underappreciate, or they'll go. It's turn 4. They can't combo off. Here's my Thorn, or I've got to snuff out behind this Thorn. There's definitely no way they can combo off, like that sort of thing. And that to me is how 90% of like my wins come from Mogwarts. Is just I didn't think it enough. Like I think my record. I think I was saying to Hamoud the other day. Is like I think I've beat like three relics, 2 targeted removal, and a counter spell. I think it was all in one turn. And it's like, but that was also the backside. They just didn't have any pressure. They were like, "I'm gonna hold up everything and not win the game." And they were stuck with like 3 terrors or something in the hand or whatever it was, and they were like, "I don't need that. I'm just gonna stop you from winning." The deck definitely can play both game modes. Like it can definitely attack, and it's definitely a good deck, and it definitely shows here with Bako and Hamuda taking it.
But yeah, it's a pretty interesting Friday overall.
Yeah,
To be fair,
for sure.
Obviously we've got the 2 Affinity Masters at the top, but then a pretty varied top 8, top 10, and with some interesting decks that we don't normally see there as well, with the Pestilence and even the Dredge making the top 8, although that's now becoming a bit more commonplace.
Yeah. I'm happy to move on and dodge talking about Jeskai Wildfire.
So the Saturday challenge on the 25th, there was only 39 players, but I believe the showcase was on at the same time or a similar time. So that might be why that number is a lot lower than we usually see. First place was Dredge, second place was Corgates, third was Grixis Affinity, fourth was Cycle Storm, fifth was Blue Black Terror, sixth was Ponza, seventh was Blue Red Terror. Is that Blue Red Terror? I thought it was Blue Red Squid. I've maybe just read it wrong. Eighth was Kuldotha, and then the 2 near misses. Ninth was Mono Blue Terror, and 10th was Grixis Affinity.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess my first comment is about the low attendance. I'm assuming that's because it's clashing with the showcase, and the showcase was very well attended, as we'll get onto. But yeah, Dredge taking it down. Sort of a similar list to the one we've just talked about, with the like just max on Exhumes and Rubble Belt Mavericks. The only main difference I think is it just didn't run any Gnaws in the main at all. So it was just okay, if I run against Kuldotha, I guess I lose the first game.
I think
it's obviously a lot better set up for control.
Yeah, I think looking at the actual changes, it looks like it's cut 2 Gnaws and a land for a Acorn Harvest and 2 Circular Land Druids. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Definitely. I always get worried about this deck going down on lands. Like Pro Bowl's like, oh yeah, run 12, and I'm like, what the hell? This deck will give me an aneurysm running 12 lands.
Honestly, like I think the one I was last running, I think it was the 13.
Yeah.
But with the Oliphant.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't matter. Like especially now with Conduit Pilots, like it's fine. You have one land, you have a land cycler, and then you just win the game. It's nuts. But yeah, it's interesting like how like a lot of the deck is set, but there's still obviously a lot of flex like to get this into like a different position to the one that we've just spoke about. Like you've just swapped 5 cards, and none of them really impact the main strategy or the main like win con. And then obviously you see the other versions where they just don't run Exhumes anymore, and it's still does well. So yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, when this first come out, we were all hype on Dredge, and everyone laughed at us. But look where we are now.
Yes. My only one concern about this deck, or this list, maybe even the same as the last list, I didn't really check, which I'm assuming that they're the same, is 3 Lotleth Giants. I feel like 3's, I know obviously it's only good when you're winning the game, but when I played Dredge, the amount of times you would just half win by going reanimate, then reanimate again in the same turn, and like I feel like that's less likely to happen with 3.
Yeah, it's a weird one because I've been playing quite a lot of Dredge in paper, and I've been running 3 Lotleth Giants, and I often like just board out 1 or 2 more. Like a lot of the time, if they've got like graveyard hit and stuff up, you'll be able to like dread return a couple of times. But you just like the first dread return, you just do it on a troll. And they're that scared of you bringing back the giant that you just end up with a troll. And then the next one, you just do it on another troll. From what I've found, it's like you can run 2 giants pretty easily, and so like sometimes you'll draw them both, or they'll both be in the bottom, and it'll be awkward. But yeah, a lot of the time you can just be like, oh, I'll just get back a troll, I'll get back an end, and that's gonna either win the game or they'll interact with it, and then you can just get back a giant and kill them.
Seems so odd. Seems so odd.
It is a bit backwards. But even like the ones I've ran recently have cut exhumes by down to 1 with a couple in the sideboard. And that was sort of the same. Like I was just getting back trolls and attacking with them, like hard casting dread returns and then just slashing it back.
Yeah, like I do like the idea, obviously, with the exhumes of just here's a big dude early, and then that gets you so many free wins, or it makes it so like you can kill with a Lotleth Giant like 2 turns early because you hit them for 12 or whatever. Like I do like the exhume sort of package, especially with Maverick and Conjure Pylon. I think it's like to me you might as well. But
I think especially at the moment while Terra's like pretty low in representation, it's definitely a good place to be. And just getting like an early troll against like core gates or something, turn 2 troll against core gates. If they don't have one of their 3 journeys, you probably just win that game.
True enough. True enough.
But yeah, it's a spicy dredge list, and nice to see it win.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess my other thing I want to point out is Tyrube is still just ripping up with Cycle Storm.
Psychotic.
It seems to be the only person that can play this deck.
I think, to be fair, this list's also like I tried this list. This Tyrube's list is whack. It's like the sideboard's pure hard mode, and then like the main deck's fine. Like the main deck's just the main deck. Like apart from the lands changing, like it's pretty much the same deck. Obviously the plan's the same. Game 1 is just I'm gonna do this and you are gonna die. That's basically it. But sideboard, it's just like, why not just have I blow up your relic? You've got to be like, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to like sort of teeter-totter and then I'm going to vision charm it and do you over. It's like, why? Because if you don't combo off, then you're still sat there with a relic and it's like, what?
I guess a lot of the time, depending how you play it, you can probably just go through a relic. Like if you just songs and then pop the relic and then you just either songs or reaping in response, like you're just gonna go through that relic anyway.
Yeah, you definitely can for sure. Like obviously,
but I get what you mean.
But it's just like, why not? Like, like the best thing is they're already got a mountain in the sideboard, right? Why not just run an ingot chewer? It adds to your songs count. But no, you've got to put a vision charm in there because why not? But also, one funny thing that I've noticed is I actually don't think the list has changed pre or post ban. Like, I actually think the side is the exact same.
I think it's the same, yeah.
Like, he's just still doing his thing. Just like, cycle, cycle, cycle. That's it.
Yeah, it's a wild deck.
Yeah. I do think, I wonder if the list, i.e. the main deck, the mana base will change based on MH3, even though I don't think we can speak about that yet, but, you know, be interesting to see if it does change. I don't know if it will or not, but be interesting, for sure. Other than that, I don't think there's anything. I guess we do have Carrot Eaters decided that Fair's not the place to be and gone back to their old roots and went straight to Colgate, which is good to see. I guess 4 Dust to Dust is what brought them back. I'm guessing. I always do like Carrot Eaters lists, to be fair. Big fan of Carrot Eaters Colgate's list. They're very to the point. No messing, no fussing. So
yeah, I guess this one's slightly spicier with the one-off Dispel, but yeah, I do get what you mean.
Yeah.
Even the sideboard is just essentially a bunch of 2-offs and 4 Dust to Dust.
Yeah, I think I've seen quite a few moved from Spell Pierce to Dispel lately, which I'm not against because of how controlling the rest feels. Like the rest of the meta feels. Like I would rather have a Dispel than a Spell Pierce if they're gonna have a bazillion lands in play. But yeah, it's I'm definitely obviously accounting for the meta. Still decided doesn't need Outlaw Medic and still rocking the Dawnbringer Clerics.
Scared of Pestilence, clearly.
That's what it is. Seeing it on the Friday, I was like, oh shit!
Yeah, the sideboard isn't actually a bunch of 2-offs, but they've just split Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast into 2 and 2 rather than just 4 Pyroblast. And the same with Hydroblasts.
Yeah.
So there's 2 Hydroblasts and 2 Blue Elemental Blasts.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's actually a reason to do that other than one of them cost more than the other in like Magic Online money.
I think the only thing I can think of is I'm sure Carrot Eater used to run a bazillion blasts in the side. So they used to run like 4 Rebs, 4 Pyroblasts at one point, and then like say 4 Bebs, 4 Hydros, like that sort of thing, like sort of high numbers of, as in more than 4. So if you cut them down to 2-2, and they see a Beb and a Hydro,
okay. That might think it's
more. Yeah, that's the only reason I can think of. But
that's fair.
Because I'm sure it was Carrot. One of the Colgate plays is very well known for basically the sideboard was a bunch of blasts and like that was it.
But yeah, so that essentially the sideboard is just 4 Dust to Dust, 4 Hydros, 4 Pyros, a couple of relics and a negate. So again, just a very clean sideboard. But Colgate does tend to do that. We see just generally 8 blasts, 4 Dust to Dusts, and then a few more cards to fill in the gaps, usually relics.
And then I guess speaking about other Grix Affinity Masters, Discover N coming in 3rd.
Yeah.
Again,
an interesting list as well with the double Mephitic draft. No edicts in the main, so no extract confessions, no Tithing Blades.
Yep.
Just a couple extra Mephitic drafts instead, which is interesting.
And
I don't know how I feel about this card. It's fine, but it's also just not really impressive.
No, I'm not a big fan personally. I think the other sort of 2-mana artifacts sort of, even like I think I'd rather run Lembas over this, but I feel like I'd rather run Candy Trail over this. Yeah, I think there's just a lot of
especially it's only on the 7 Deadly Dispute effects, not the full 8. So like I don't know. It's an interesting one. The Grixis Affinity deck in general is so flexible.
Yeah.
There's just so much room. They are on 4 Blood Fountains, which is definitely a statement. Usually it teeters between 2 and 3. And 1 Gurmag as the essentially extra bomb of choice.
Yeah, so not on Kenku, not on Gateseeker, not on Somber Hoverguard. Like Gurmag's again another interesting statement. I guess
especially with 4 Blood Fountains.
Yeah. For sure. And I still don't. I don't know how I feel about the Gurmag. I really don't. Like I think I like it, but I also like because it's not like Gateseeker. It dodges like Pyro and things like that. It's not like Somber Hoverguard where it's actually a fairly weak body that also gets hit by Pyro, but it is just so clunky sometimes.
Yeah.
But it is a black 5/5, so it doesn't die stuff out. It's bigger than pretty much the mirror stuff. But then again, yeah, it is interesting for sure. Interesting to see how that performed. The sideboard again, not really anything out the ordinary. I wouldn't have said.
No. No, I guess the 2 dispels are a bit weird. Given the not hitting like Dust to Dust and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not massively certain what they're for. I would guess other counters. Because if it was just for like removal dust to dusts, cast into the fires and stuff like that, it would maybe be like spell piece or turn asides, I guess. But yeah, it fairly stock. A bunch of blasts, some gorilla shamans, another crowd shaman.
I think a lot. I think it was Luffy's list and also Mog's list pretty low on like anti dust to dust stuff as well. I think they were just negates.
They've got like a couple negates.
Yeah.
But that's basically it.
Yeah, and Mog.
Hopefully, no one's playing dust to dust.
Yeah, and Mog doesn't have any. I think, to be fair, as of most Grixis, especially like master pilots like these three, can definitely beat a dust to dust and like play around dust to dust pretty well. A lot of people, I think, still get fixated on I'm going to dust your lands, and then they just die to 2 Marine Forces when they haven't got a dust to dust. Like it's very common, so I wouldn't be surprised if these pilots can definitely play around it for sure.
Any other comments on the Saturday, or do you want to move on to the showcase?
I'm fine to move on to the showcase. It is. So was it Spock on Friday as well? It was.
It was. So, with blue red.
Spock with the double blue red top 8 is definitely a good showing. And I guess finally 9th place mono blue terror as well. Just interesting to note that it is
a bit of an oddball to see, something we haven't seen in a long time. Obviously back on the whole boomerang force spike, like combo, I guess if you will, like basically just play some at turn 1, turn 2 boomerang them, and then hope to stay ahead.
Yeah, I'm definitely all for boomerang. Don't know why.
Yeah,
sweet.
It's not like you've just had a self-Tara video. There's also a couple hoodwinks in the sideboard.
I'm all for this. Do you want to move on to the Saturday showcase?
Yeah, so also on the 25th, we had 148 players for the showcase, which is mega to see. First place was Colgate, second was Jeskai Wildfire, third was Black Red Madness, 4th and 5th were both Grixis Affinity, 6th was Cycle Storm. I wonder if you can guess who was piloting that. 7th and 8th were both also Grixis Affinity. 9th was Jeskai Wildfire, and 10th was Grixis Affinity. I guess my initial take from this is Grixis Affinity and Jeskai Wildfire definitely showing why the bridges should have been banned and not glitters. That is a lot of Grixis Affinity and sandwiched in some Jeskai Wildfire for good measure, just to show how broken the bridges are in Pauper.
Yeah, that's a lot of bridges. I'm assuming I haven't checked, but I would assume the Madness list is on the mainland and not the bridges.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's still on 4 bridges. But
has it got the 4 bridges?
Yeah.
All right.
So there's a lot of bridges in this top 8.
2 decks not on bridges.
There's the Colgate doesn't have bridge, and obviously Cycle Storm. And that's in the entire top 10. So 2 out of 10 not running bridges.
Bridges.
Yeah.
So
a pretty cool. Well, obviously cool to see so many players. Obviously, Grixis Affinity has definitely been unleashed since the glitters ban. It's definitely probably the best deck again, I would imagine. Cool to see Black Red Madness doing so well as well. It's something that I wouldn't have expected really to top 8, and obviously we'll see it again. But with the one of Fodder Tosser as well, which is
old tech, and I love it. I love that. I seen it and I was like, oh my god, it's back.
Yeah.
Like yes.
But yeah, Madness has been doing quietly quite well lately. Essentially since it got 4 Jagged Barons.
Yeah.
And I was like, is just that 4 Pingland enough to just make this deck actually good now? But it sort of seems like it is.
I think I think it probably, to me, I think no one really looked at it after the Swift Spear ban. And I'd probably say it was probably still good again, if you know what I mean. It was still fine. After the Swift Spear ban with Tomb Raider. But I think when Jagged Barons has come out, people have been like, this seems perfect for Madness. And then people have
Yeah.
just explored the deck again. I'm like, oh, wait, this deck's actually still cracked.
Yeah. But yeah, we've been seeing it quite a bit.
Mm.
I played against it in that league that I played as well. And it does just seem like very solid, very well rounded. It's good colours to have a lot of like good sideboard answers like Nail Spellbomb, Smash to Smithereens, Gorilla Shamans, etc. Tie the Blades for Edict. So it can answer a lot of the decks that are good at the moment. And yeah, just it is a really solid aggressive deck.
Yeah. Definitely.
Which is nice to have. Now, obviously, now that Glitters, particularly blue-white Glitters, is gone, we were sort of like feeling a bit like Kuldotha was the only really like high-tier aggressive deck. So yeah, nice to see Madness picking it up.
Yeah, definitely. It's always cool deck to see, and it also does. It has a lot of interaction to it in the sense that when you play against it, it's surprisingly how much there's to and fro than just like gameplay to it. If you know what I mean, so it does actually make it quite exciting to play against. Even if my Black Red Madness opponents always have Tomb Raider on one, whatever.
And yeah, so I guess the Grixis Affinity lists.
Where do you want to start?
To put the new cranial plating
in? The blue, probably.
Just black red aggressive affinity.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing massively stand out for them. They all are slightly different, I think. Even if it's just like maybe sideboard choices and things like that. I guess the 7th place one is the most different. Because it has 2 Kenkus and the Gurmag. But generally, and one cast down in the main.
Oh, this proper threw me off.
It's set out slightly different.
It's because it doesn't run a munitions.
Oh right, so the enchantment line's gone.
The enchantment line's gone, so it's pulled everything to the left. That was so confusing. So first of all, weirdly enough, why are you not running a munitions?
Yeah.
What?
There's one in the board. But it's the 7th place one is definitely the weirdest of them all. But even then, like, it's maybe 5 cards different than the others.
Which one of those is a munitions? Don't cut the munitions.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Definitely interesting.
You want to talk about Jeskai Wildfire?
Not really.
I really dislike that deck.
I don't even know where did it go. What did it come? Oh, 9th, wasn't it? Where's it at?
It was 9th and 2nd.
Oh, that's why I didn't scroll too far up. There we are. I think Jeskai Wildfire is a good deck. Like, let's be honest, it's as much as it pains me to say it. It has got a lot of build to it, where you build it in a way that obviously how it does against certain metagames. With the Glitters sort of lists, they sort of started to cut down on the pinpoint removal and then rely on Breath Weapon. Now they've like picked it up a bit, so they're running this 2nd place list here is running 5. It's running 3 lightning bolts, 2 Screds. And then
main deck cast into the fire as well.
And then
pretty interesting.
A main deck cast into the fire, main deck destroy evil, and 1 sort of breath weapon. And that's that seems to be enough. It seems to work for them. Like, I think the previous list again was sort of similar. They ran like 5, maybe 3, 2, what the other way, maybe 3 Screds, 2 lightning bolts, and then have a couple of breath weapons. It's like, it's very much customized with how they build the deck, and they've definitely refined themselves. This deck's just miserable as hell to play against.
Yeah, I think it is probably like on par with Colgate as like the best control deck in the format.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe not now if you class Grixis as a control deck. But it's up there with the like blue mid-range control deck with Colgate.
Yeah.
It sort of, even player numbers, it's sort of now starting to be similar. It was also always like less played, but seems to have sort of picked back up at the moment. But yeah, it's so horrendous to play against. It's just not fun.
Yeah.
And if this is like what we're fighting, like we're keeping bridges in the format so this can exist. Like, just don't. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, the thing for me is Jeskai Metalcraft, or even like Jeskai Control, or whatever.
Jund Wildfire.
Yeah, or like, well, I was thinking more like before bridges, like Jeskai control existed.
Right, okay.
Like you still had some Muldrifter
even
flicker
with
piles or
this, yeah, it wasn't too long ago that we seen the Jeskai Scred, and it just didn't have the bridges and the wildfire packaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you could build a Jeskai control deck without wildfire.
Yeah. Just to clarify, was Ephemerate Modern Horizons 1 and then Bridges were 2, right?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So you had that window where there was still no Bridges, but there was still Ephemerate and Muldrift, and I'm almost certain like Jeskai Control existed before that. And the deck, like, I say keeping Bridges around just for wildfire is not a thing. I'm not sold. I'm just not sold.
I think as well, if it obviously this is very much of our opinion time. If we are like keeping Bridges around, but it's causing stuff like glitters to be banned and this new cranial plating to be banned, like if they would be fine without Bridges, obviously glitters is a big tool for heroic and Bogles and stuff like that. If you just banned the Bridges, I imagine that makes that substantially worse in the artifact decks, but maintains it for those other like more fringe decks. Like especially stuff like Grixis Affinity, like we're seeing now. Back before Bridges, before On Horizons 2, the Grixis Affinity mana base was literally having to play like Prophetic Prism and stuff to make its mana base not awful.
I can't ban though. Broken.
Exactly. So now if you've just banned Bridges, you don't have Prophetic Prism. Like the Grixis Affinity mana base is so fragile without Bridges. All the lands just get blown up by Gorilla Shaman.
Ancient
none of them are jewels.
Yeah.
So you don't have any fixing.
You have to run Energy Refractor to make it playable.
Yeah. And even that's not good fixing in
a
non-Tron deck because you're paying 2 in getting 1. So they would have to do something like they would have to be on like 4 stars, 4 spheres or something weird like that to try and get the mana base to work. And even then, like you're even more fragile to like Gorilla Shamans and things. So yeah, I think for me, ultimately, I think Bridges probably should have just gone instead of Glitters. Obviously, Gavin knew about this common, which I guess should have influenced the decision, but given that he can't tell the rest of the PFP about it as well, it makes it sort of in an awkward place to happen. But yeah, like I don't know.
I do also think that say you take out the Bridges from this situation, Cranial Ram's good, but it doesn't look
good.
It's very good now with Bridges. It's still good without Bridges, but it is definitely more susceptible. And I'm not saying it's not broken. I'm not saying it's definitely not broken, but being able to nuke every single land your opponent plays, and also any artifact token, like if you were playing Voldaren Epicure or the treasure tokens from Deadly Dispute or what have you, or even the blood token from Blood Fountain, all of them dying to Gorilla Shaman, being able to Ancient Grudgeon double hit 2 things, including the Cranial Ram, makes it less troublesome.
Yeah,
is the best way I can see it.
I think without Bridges, it would still probably be very good, but it wouldn't be the does this need pre-banned argument.
Yes.
But yeah, with as well as without Bridges, like a lot of the hate opens up. Like we see white sideboard cards now is essentially everyone's just on Dust to Dust. Because none of the other white hate is really good at dealing with these indestructible Bridges.
Yeah.
And you want to have the option to get rid of the affinity creatures like the Marine Forces as well as the Bridges. Whereas if it's just like the normal affinity, like that Mirrodin artifact lands, the white hate opens up so much more. You get so much more options for like just the destroy artifact stuff. You obviously get all the like the ETB destroy artifact guys or the sack them destroy artifact guys become options again. Whereas now they're just not. You just have to play Dust to Dust because that's the most efficient option.
Yeah.
Or revoke existence if you want a 5th Dust to Dust, I guess.
But again, like revoke existence, cast into fire, troublemaker oof, all deal with Bridges, but all on a bad scale. Like 1-to-1 taking out an artifact, potentially a bridge, is not a good trade.
Mm.
You have wasted a card to potentially, in theory, you could potentially do absolutely nothing. They could have 4 lands in hand and you've done absolutely nothing. They can still function. Fair enough, there's probably games where you're probably going to hit a land and it might hit them, but as we've discovered with Grixis Affinity, you usually need 2 dust to dust at least to sort of to get them to be hurt or feel it, to be fair.
I think Grixis in particular is the ultimate, like, the fixing is too good for Affinity. And the problem with that is the bridges. Like, if you just banned Mirrored Artifact lands, you hurt basically every deck other than, like, you hurt Grixis Affinity, but probably not to the extent you hurt, like, Black Red Madness and Cult Author and things like that. They rely a lot more on the Great Furnaces or the Vault of Whispers than Grixis Affinity does, because it can just play a bunch of tapped lands. Especially if you're slowing down the aggro decks that were relying on, like, Tomb Raiders and Galvblast. Like, then the Grixis deck just has more time to just play a bunch of tap lands, and it probably just, like, starts running Wildfires and Basics and stuff like that as well. But yeah, it's we're in an interesting place in Pauper at the moment, and that challenge top 8 definitely shows something. Hopefully the PFP will take something from it. I don't know if this, well, we still haven't seen if this Cranial Ram is getting pre-banned or they're leaving it or what. We don't know what's happening with that yet. I imagine we'll know once the full spoiler is out, I would imagine, if it's getting pre-banned. But yeah, the fact that there is any consideration in pre-banning it means there's probably something already wrong. Like, there's something that's probably needing removed from the format. If cards like that are being printed and immediately banned, maybe it's the thing that's causing that. That is the issue.
Yeah, my thing is, my only devil's advocate argument to all this is I've always thought Pauper as a whole has always got rid of the end card and not the stuff that makes it broken. Like, it's always been like that with, like, Storm, for example. Storm's the big one. Like, they always just, there you go, Storm's gone. You can't have, Dark Ritual, Rite of Flame, Cabal Ritual, Songs that, all these things that make broken mana is always allowed in the format to exist, even though the power level of Dark Ritual is a lot higher than Pauper itself, I would say. But because you've got no enablers or no end card, like, you end up with these clunky decks, like Cycle Storm, for example, which, and I think, I don't know if that's sort of the niche, like, oh, look at my janky Wildfire pile, like, I'm playing, Naya Wildfire, look at me go, whatever. That sort of place of look at my fun is sort of the way, not just Pauper, the Pauper panel, like, see it, but also generally people looking in see Pauper the Pauper format is like, oh, I can play my janky Wildfire brew because bridges are allowed, and but it's alright, I'll just ban the Cranial Platings, the Glitters, the Rams and stuff. And I'm not saying I agree with that, just I do think that Pauper generally does sort of follow that rule, like, as a blanket statement.
Yeah, I think as well, like, where it falls down though is that is so much easier to implement against something like Storm, where it's like, I just have to ban this one Storm card. Like, they don't print that many Storm cards. But when it's just like any, like, Sojourner's Companion, oh, it's too good because we've got too many artifacts. Or like this Cranial Ram or all the Glitters, like, they're all very different cards. But they're all sort of impacted by the artifacts being too good.
Would you not just have a standard of just, instead of just banning all 10 bridges, just ban all, like, 15, 16? Just ban them all. Just artifact lands gone.
So that's, I guess that's the other argument. But where it sort of twists it a bit for me is that Mirrored Artifact lands in particular are so, like, core to Pauper's history and, like, core to how Pauper has gotten to what it is today. Like, they've essentially always been played in Pauper. Like, Affinity has essentially always been a deck in Pauper. It used to be super clunky with a bad mana base and, like, terrified of Gorilla Shaman. Like, he used to play, like, 2 mana 4/4s that were green. And it used to be like, 4 colours, 5 colours with Prophetic Prism and Chromatic Star, like, tying it together. So I think losing that sort of history of for Pauper is a shame, or would be a shame. Whereas the bridges are essentially very new, and since they've came in, have always been considered like, oh, this might be an issue, these might be an issue.
I think the only interesting
one.
thing is that obviously I've seen a lot of people say, well, banning bridges when glitters was because an awkward argument because glitters, like blue-white glitters, only ended up running like 3 bridges. Like,
well, 4, yeah.
Yeah, or 4. Like, some,
Yeah.
depending on the list, like, they didn't run, like, some of them didn't run the full set of Razor Tides, or they didn't run the full set of Rustfield. Well, Boros mainly ran the full set of Rustfields, but...
Yeah, I think that the Boros always ran 4, the Blue-White also ran 4, and then the Jeskai obviously ran some sort of mix. But, like, you take those out, like, the Blue-White mana base is then just so much worse if you just don't have 4 dual lands in.
Yeah.
Because you don't really want to be playing then just, like, tapped type duels. And same with the Boros one, and then the Jeskai one just like falls apart completely. It's just not a thing without bridges. Yeah, it's interesting. It's obviously an interesting discussion that I'm sure the PFP have had a lot.
Well, the last 6 cards banned or something was artifact based, so I would assume they've had this conversation a lot.
I'm not sure what the answer is, like the correct answer. I think for me at this point, I would just say, look, we're going to try and ban the bridges and see what happens. And then we might go back on this decision if we don't feel like it's worked.
I don't know. I feel like that's... I don't know why. I just feel like they're just going to keep the bridges in for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I feel like they probably will, but I'm not sure if they should.
Yeah, it is an interesting one, to be fair. As you can see here, as we've discussed, obviously the top 10, there's 8 bridges. Obviously, one of the decks doesn't need them, but yeah.
Yeah, essentially the other than the madness, which is just solid fixing that also enables like Tomb Raiders and stuff.
Yeah.
The other 7 decks hard rely on bridges.
Yeah.
Like the Grixis Affinity, it's essentially the main fixing. And then the
same with Wildfire, to be fair.
Jeskai Wildfire, it's essentially the core of the decks that speeds it up and fixes its mana base.
Well, it's just here's my red X land. I will Wildfire for the other colour I don't have. Woo! Sorted.
Yeah. I think that I guess my last point is the main thing that stands out to me is the fixing that they allow. Like they're not fragile and they give you fixing. Whereas the Mirrodin ones are obviously untapped, which is more powerful, but they're super fragile and don't fix your mana base. And there's only 1 of each colour. So even if you wanted like 20 artifact lands, like you're playing like 5 colours. Whereas now if you want 20 artifact lands, you can play 3 colours.
I think it'd be interesting to see do you think it's indestructible that pushes them over the edge? Like obviously for Wildfire that's a case, but like if they can be Gorilla Shaman or Ancient Grudge, I think we're talking a different thing as well. It's just they randomly have indestructible on.
Yeah, if they weren't indestructible, obviously Jeskai Wildfire would just have to be like a Darksteel Citadel pile, or just a Jeskai control deck, like you say.
Yeah.
I think they would have probably still had to ban Glitters if they weren't indestructible, but it would open it up a lot. Like it probably wouldn't have been as bad because you can just like you're so much more fragile, like Gorilla Shamans, or even like turn 2. If you're on the draw, turn 2, Kuldotha smashes to smithereens your dual land that you've not played anything with because it's coming tapped. Like it means that the decks have a lot more game against you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, definitely an interesting one. Interesting talk. This is also why we don't like to talk about Jeskai Wildfire on this podcast.
We're going on a tangent.
Because we go on a tangent and we get raging at Wildfire. But regarding the showcase, obviously a lot of Grixis, a lot of interesting lists of Grixis. They're a little bit different, as you say, maybe different 5 slots or something here and there, not including the sideboards. Don't be a psychopath, don't not run munitions. Play Jeskai Wildfire if you have no soul. You can do that. And play Fodder Tosser in your Black-Red Madness deck. That is what you got from the showcase. The metagame, I did pop that up briefly.
It was a lot of Grixis Affinity.
Yes. Basically I think it was like the 4th and 5th was basically what changed. So Affinity was top at 15%, Kuldotha was 10%, Colgate's was 9%, so percent down roughly.
That is quite low for Kuldotha as well, just as on a tangent, like 150 players, only 148 players, like 14 and a bit of them playing Kuldotha. That's a lot less than we normally see. And like if you added all the challenges up, for example, you'd probably be on like 20 summer players.
Yeah, so the Kuldotha's on 16 pilots for the showcase, and then 26 over the weekend for the challenges.
It's particularly low for Kuldotha.
The only difference is basically the top 3 are still the same in the same order, but then after that it goes to, in the showcase, Ponza's the next deck with 11 pilots, and then Jeskai Wildfire or Jeskai Ephemerate is the next deck after that at 8 pilots at 5%, where obviously previously we mentioned that it goes Goblin combos, slots in underneath Corgate, and then it goes Ponza. But for some reason in the challenge, Jeskai Wildfire took a nosedive and there was like 4 pilots. So definitely interesting percentages, and the win rates as well. If you want to check them out, obviously check them out on Kirby's Twitter. He posts them every week. The win rates definitely surprised me what the winners are of the whole weekend. Affinity is okay. It's a positive win rate. Obviously, look at the top 8.
Yeah.
But it actually, saying that, it wasn't actually over the whole challenge weekend. It was just shy of 50%. But still, in terms of the showcase, definitely a good showing for Grixis Affinity. And all shows just different ways of playing the deck as well. It's definitely strong and fun to play. But definitely is broken.
Do you want to move on to the last challenge for Sunday?
Fire away.
So the Sunday, the 64 challenge, fired obviously with 68 players. First place was Mogwarts, second was Colgates, third and fourth were a pair of mono blue terrors.
Ooh.
Fifth was Dredge, sixth was Ponza, seventh was Blue Black Fair, 8 was White Weenie. And then the 2 near misses. Back again in 9th is Pestilence, and then 10th is Black Red Madness.
Looks like they're the same Pestilence list as well. Not the same pilot.
It looks almost exactly the same. Yeah, I guess the first thing to touch on is probably the double mono blue terror is very unexpected. They are slightly different lists as well, with one having like a Murmur Mystic in the main. But essentially both of the whole boomerang, turn 2 boomerang your land, or has the option to turn 2 boomerang your land sort of terror piles, with Delvers, Terrors, and Cryptic Serpents. But yeah, interesting to see it sort of making a bit of a return.
I think it's like obviously it's an aggro deck sort of thing because it's the more aggro option, and trying to fill that void. It's a good deck in that sense because it's a deck that avoids the hate that the other quote unquote aggro decks have. Like obviously it doesn't die a breath weapon really. It's blue. It does have protection backup, and it just makes a bunch of 5/5s. My only flaw to this is it's kind of weak to the other strategies, as in like everyone's got Pack and Pyroblasts, for example, or Red Elemental Blasts for the control decks, and it sort of has that hit. And then with Dredge doing so well, not only this event but over the weekend, like people will be packing some sort of graveyard hit. So it definitely is an interesting. It's good that it's obviously done so well because it's like made a resurgence, and I'm all for the boomerang, get force spiked sort of piles, all for it. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see if we do see more of this moving forward, or the lockdown.
Yeah, speaking on the Dredge, it's basically the same as the list we just went over with the 4 Exhumes, the 3 Giants, and the 14 lands, with no Gnaws in the main but 4 in the side. I'm not sure if it's the same pilot. I didn't check, but yeah, basically the same list.
I feel like this person has been playing Dredge for quite a while. The name does ring a bell.
And then yeah, Pestilence and Black Red Madness bringing up the rear for a bit of spice. Again, the Black Red Madness is on the fodder tosser still. Just a really cool card to see. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how good it is.
I actually really do like the card. I think as a control, like, sort of end game, I don't know why, I just like it. It doesn't really get... I think some people obviously like to bring in, like, Gorilla Shaman against the whole madness side to deal with, like, blood tokens and stuff. It sort of avoids that. It's too mana intensive for them to destroy a fodder
Like
tosser.
7 mana, you've probably already lost by then if they've
Yeah.
got that much mana. Yeah.
And it just deals so much. Like, it's basically dealing 5 damage every time you tap it, because obviously the thing you discard usually bolts him. If
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
it's a kitchen imp and it deals 4. Like, this card kills really quickly and just chills. Just chills. And if you are flooded, I'll pitch a land. Shock you.
Are we going to be seeing a Black Red Madness video
I do,
on the Teasdale channel?
most likely, because I do like the deck.
Yeah,
and I'm all for fodder tosser. But yeah, every time I do try and record with it, I either do okay and then end up posting it, but I think I end up doing bad most of the time. I get, like, Gorilla Shaman to death. Usually.
Maybe that's why you need a fodder tosser.
Definitely. Also, mono white or white weenie coming in 8th. J-Wave's obviously the white weenie expert. But I also do think this deck is probably surprisingly well positioned.
It's got obviously a lot of good sideboard cards at the moment. And even its main plan is just solid.
Yeah.
There's nothing particularly new. There's no like weird tech or anything. Yeah, just leveraging Strands, Guardian's Pledge, and a bunch of white weenies.
Yeah. It's definitely sweet. Hopefully we see this more moving forward, to be fair.
I guess one shout that I don't see too often is the one of Unmake in the sideboard. Obviously, there's like a Guardian answer from your mono white deck. Maybe because obviously Colgates is picking up quite a lot at the moment.
I also think those sort of effects as well, like having the access to the exile a creature effects, also do pick up in popularity if Grixis is a thing, because just exiling the Mirror Enforcer is good against the Blood Fountain strategy. It's like it's not it is exactly as you say. It's definitely for Guardian because it is multicolored, but having access to basically just extra stuff to get rid of Mirror Enforcers is nothing to really turn your nose back.
To go with your 4 Dust to Dust and 3 Revoke Existence.
Yeah. Exactly. More exile hate. Be gone, Mirror Enforcer.
Ponza.
Yeah.
Interesting one to see back. Obviously, it's had a really good run in, like, percentage-wise. It's been one of the most played decks. This one, I guess, the main interesting thing that stands out for me is that there's a one-off Crimson Fleet Commodore and 2 Reclaiming Vines in the main.
Yeah.
So the Reclaiming Vines, if anyone hasn't seen that before, it's 2 and 2 green. Sorcery, destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. So it's, I guess, another Ponza effect in a pinch, but also has the ability to, like, plug enchantments and artifacts.
Kills Mirror Enforcer.
Yeah.
More importantly, kills Pestilence.
And the thing that seems to have gone is just the Screds. Like, there's just no Screds in the main. So there's no real removal in the main. You're just essentially trying to Ponza them game 1. And then obviously there's no Screds in the sideboard either because you've just bought in better removal like the Gleamers and Breath Weapons and such.
I don't think you need it. I really, really don't. I don't think it's necessary, especially with how slow the metagame's getting.
Yeah, and Glitters is gone, so you don't really need a point removal 1 creature.
No. So I'm all for that change, to be honest. Unsure about the Commodore. I'd probably just run another Ponza effect. But yeah, definitely sweet. I guess obviously if there's a lot of Monarch, if you expect a lot of fairies, I guess just another way to be able to take a Monarch is, you can easily stabilize through, like, also. So I guess
it
okay.
might be something that's like with Gardens as well. It's nice to have just your own Monarch effect.
Yeah.
After they kill all you guys.
Yeah, but definitely a sweet deck. Everyone hates losing to Ponza, but that's what makes it fun and beautiful. But yeah, the sideboard's pretty cool as well. Like, one thing I do find interesting is how they definitely keep to the glamours as opposed to casting the fire as well. But I guess I'm guessing just some sort of enchantment game, I guess, because you don't really care too much about killing 1/1s. But interesting enough.
Yeah, I guess the green's probably easier to cast as well in general. Is one thing I guess we could look at is the format. Obviously, Reclaimer Vines is quite versatile with the being able to hit artifacts or enchantments, but it is also still 4 mana, so it's a lot harder to just like turn to it. I don't know if maybe like something like Stone Rain or
We've seen it before with
other 3 mana Ponza option.
I don't think there's many, to be honest. I don't think there's many green ones, anyways. But I do think I've seen Stone Rain before. Stone Rain's not out of the question. I wouldn't say.
Just to be able, obviously, like turn 1 Utopia Sprawl, turn 2 Ponza.
Yeah, I think the awkward side is obviously if you don't get the Utopia Sprawl and you end up with a Wild Growth, you're sitting there with 2 forests and a Wild Growth. But obviously you're still not casting your Reclaiming Vines or your Acid Moss from that. But it's definitely one of them. I think it's the Stone Rains are really good at being the second Ponza effect.
Yeah.
Because like you can Acid Moss away and get a mountain or a Highland Forest. But I guess if that's the case, you might as well run Reclaiming Vines, I guess. But it is interesting for sure. I'm all for Ponza ended up with the top 8 for sure.
But yeah, it's a sweet top 8 overall.
I think what was the other thing I want to touch on is obviously the winning list, the Mogwarts list. Season of Mists, of course. Why would I not? But it's Season of Mists, who was the gentleman we were talking about playing Tribe, and we followed him over the Saturday challenge, and his list was different. Decided to pick up Mogwarts because obviously clearly a better combo deck. No disputing that. But interestingly enough, went very, very clean is the best way I can describe it. There's just
That's what I was going to say.
No mess. It's no Mesmeric Fiends. It's just 3 Duresses. There's no one of Faithless Luton, and just went, here's 3 Impulsive Pilferers, and I am going to try and turn 4 you pretty much every time. Interesting take on it. Obviously worked. I think ended up splitting the finals. And that was like their only loss, I think, from memory, looking at their little tournament report on Twitter.
Yeah, it's just like compared to the other Mogwarts list that we usually see, there's like no one-offs.
Yeah, no Crackland, no Mes Fiends, no Faithless Luton. Max on, not Max on stars. The interesting thing, I guess, is 3-3 split of Wellspring Star, but that's not that
rather
interesting.
than the 2-4.
Yeah. But definitely interesting. The mana base looks pretty similar as well, so I'm all for this list. I might give it a try. I think Pilfer definitely speeds up the clock. I'm overall going in blind. I'm not a fan of 3 Pilferers, but if you're trying to be as quick as possible when everyone's trying to go, here's my tapped Sea Gate, here's my tapped Citadel Gate.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. Or even just double tap bridge. But definitely a good, solid list. Anything else you want to look at, or would you like?
No, I'm happy to move on.
Sweet. Fair. Shout out obviously to all of the grinders this week. Season of Mist for playing a banging Mogwarts list. We've had Carrot Eater, seeing the light going back to Corgate. We've seen Bako, Hamuda on Mogwarts.
Luffy and Mogged with
Grixis Affinity.
And obviously Tyrube.
As always. For being an absolute psychopath and double queuing, I think, with the showcase with Cycle Storm.
Yeah.
Shout out to all the people that played in the showcase. 140 players. Take that for I'm almost certain it's a free event. You basically, obviously, if you have the qualifier points to play. So always great to see when Pauper's there and you get a massive amount of players. Always great to see.
Yeah.
For sure. Like to move on to hot takes from last week?
Yeah. So obviously last week we had Kali on as well. So Kali's take is here.
Yeah.
His take was that Grixis Affinity is going to be 10% of the meta this week. Which it definitely increased massively. Was it more than 10%?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was 10% was the third deck, so 10% was Colgate's.
So it was probably like 20-something%. I
think it was just shy of 20%. So so for the showcase, it was just shy of 15%, and then for the leagues, it was nearly 21%.
So yeah, you maybe undersold it a bit, but essentially, the rise of Grixis Affinity is is definitely here, or the return of Grixis Affinity is definitely here.
I think if I remember last week, I said only 10%. Just saying. I am right sometimes.
My take from last week was that we would settle into more of a control mid-range dominated top 8, with 1 or 2 combo decks sneaking in now and again. For the most part, that seems to be where we're at. Sunday is obviously very different. But the other 2, the Friday, the Saturday, and the Showcase are all very like mid-range control with a combo deck or 2 here and there.
So you're telling me that your hot take's been taken up by 4 Grixis Affinity, 1 Wildfire, 1 Corgi in the top 8. That's I don't think you've got that, you know. No. I guess mine as well was that Ponzo will be in the top 5, if not the top 3 most played decks next weekend. As we've already said, it was 4th in the Showcase, 4th most played deck, and 5th in the Showcase and 4th overall. What have I wrote?
It was 4th. You've written it was 4th in the Showcase and 5th in the Showcase.
Yeah. It's that good. It's top 4 and top 5. But basically, it was 4th and 5th in either the Showcase or the challenges over the weekend. So pretty good going.
It was within the top 5.
It was within the top 5. I've just been special. Hot takes next week.
Hot takes for next week. My first one is that Jeskai Wildfire and Grixis Affinity will continue to show that the bridges should have gone a long time ago.
Nice.
That's a spicy one.
Nice. Controversial, I like it. My hot take is that White Weenie will pick up next week and convert to the top 10 again. It's a solid dust-to-dust deck, as we've seen.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And also has like the tools to go even deeper on that effect, like with the revoke existences and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
My last one is that Black Red Madness will continue to make top 8 appearances. Apparently 1 ping land was all it needed to be a good deck again. So hopefully we'll continue to see Black Red Madness. It's nice to have a second choice for an aggro deck.
Yeah, definitely. Even if it runs, the same cards like Lightning Bolt, Galvanic Blast.
Very similar cards, yeah.
Tomb Raider. Or whatever.
Doesn't run Kuldotha yet.
Not yet. Still time.
Sliding Kuldotha from
Do you know what it is? Voldaren Epicure needs banned. That's clearly the glue to all these aggro decks.
I feel like aggro decks are no longer the problem.
My last one is that Pestilence will make top 10 again next week. Obviously, we had the same list come top 8 and then come 9th. Deck's pretty strong against Grixis as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if we did see this pick up. I also don't think I can put myself through a Pestilence League because it's very, very click intensive and I generally do misclick too many times with Pestilence.
No.
But it's not off the cards yet. It's not off the cards. Maybe Black Red Madness first, then Pestilence if nothing else is coming between. For sure. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it from me.
So guys, thank you all for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please do share it with your friends, your local Pauper community, and if you are interested in attending our event next weekend, do not forget to buy your tickets now in the description below. Check it out. And do not forget to tell your mechanic. I'm sure we've already
one of them right now.
I'm sure we've already said that, but still, go your mechanic. That is all from us at Cast and Comments. Until next time, and don't forget to stay hydrated. Peace!
Bye.